seeing. So it is also said that he established a treaty with another king of the Arab tribes there, the king of Ayla, and the king of Ayla also sent him gifts, and many other tribes as well, the local tribes of the province of Tabuk, all basically had peace treaties with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the final incident that we'll mention for today is one of my favorite stories of the seerah, and in fact I have said this story 2.5 or 3 years ago, but mashallah, since all of you take such good notes and since you remember everything, then we might as well just refresh your notes inshallah and redirect you to the story that has already been said. But it is one of my favorite stories really of the seerah. It's such a beautiful story that took place at Tabuk. So the Prophet sallallahu and this story is found once again in the Musnad books. The books of seerah just reference it. This is one of those things you actually find more of the details in the books of hadith. So it is actually found in the Musnad Imam Ahmad in volume 24. So we will read it directly. Hadith number 15,655. So and this is the famous incident of Heraclius quizzing the Prophet ﷺ through a messenger. And let us go straight to the hadith. That there was a man from the tribe of At-Tanukh. So he's called the Tanukhi. The one from the tribe of At-Tanukh. We don't even know his name. That used to live in Hims. Hims is, of course, Syria. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free that land from the tyrant that is currently occupying it, and from the tyrannical forces that are fighting within it. There is a tyrant on top, and then there are tyrannical extremists on the bottom. May Allah azza wa jal free them min bayni farthin wa damin, insha'Allah ta'ala. So, Sa'id ibn Abi Rashid said, I met the Tanukhi, the one whom Herakl sent to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Hims, and he was a neighbor of mine in the vicinity, neighbor of mine, very old, having reached almost 100 years of age or close to that. So I asked him, can't you tell me, meaning please tell me, of the letter that Herakl sent to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tell me the story. So this tabi'i, he's not a sahabi, his name is Sa'id ibn Abi Rashid. So he said, I met this man, and in another version he says, I met him in the church of Hims. So he went to the church to meet this man, this At-Tanukhi. So, and I said, can you tell me directly the story of Herakl sending you to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So the Tanukhi said, yes, I will tell you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Tabuk. So he sent Dihya al-Kalbi to Herakl. So this is the second letter to Herakl. He's already sent a letter to him before. And I have talked about that with Abu Sufyan, back and forth with Abu Sufyan. That's the first letter. Then this is a second letter that he sends him, right? And when the messenger, meaning Dihya, came to Herakl, Herakl called the Batariqa and the Qisis of Rome. The Batariqa is the patriarchs, Batariqa the patriarchs, and the Qisis the priests. So the priests and the patriarchs of Rome, he called them all together and he locked the door. And he said to, this is now the elite of the religious clergymen, and he said to them, you have seen the status of this man and his affairs, where he has reached. Meaning, since he has sent me the first letter, now he's conquered so much, look at now his affairs. And he has now sent me a letter inviting me to one of three things. And this shows us it's a second letter, because the first letter which is recorded in Bukhari doesn't have this. That's the first letter. This is the second letter. And he's invited me to one of three things. Number one, I either follow his religion. Or number two, what will be the second choice? Give money. Give him money and we keep our land. Or number three, we fight him. These are the standard three choices. And Herakl says, you know from what we have read of our scriptures that he will eventually control what is underneath our feet. So why don't we follow him and his religion now? So Herakl is offering to convert. Or if you refuse this, then at least let's have peace with him and give him the money. Meaning, let's not go to war because he is a true prophet. So when they heard this, they all bolted and they rushed to the door, attempting to get out and tell the people that Hiraql is willing to give up Christianity. Now remember, Hiraql is supposed to be, it's a religious figurehead as well. I mean, to this day, in the Anglican Church, the king or the queen technically is still the head of the church, right? This is how it was. This is now technically, back then, this was like a God-given right. As the head of the political system, you are appointed by God to defend the church. That's what they would understand. So to suggest that I'm going to become a Muslim, this is too much for them. So they rushed to the door, they found it bolted. So then he said and then they said to him, are you telling us to give up Christianity or to become servants to a Bedouin coming from the Hijaz? عَبِيدًا لِأَعْرَبِيًّا جَاءَ مِنَ الْحِجَاز. You want us, the Roman civilization, to become servants to the Bedouins from Hijaz? So when he saw that they would not give up their position, he then said to them, this was only a test. I'm trying and testing you to see how firm you are. So he got rid of them. Then Hiraql called one of the Arabs of his entourage, of the Nasara al-Arab, and he said to me, find for me a man who is Arabiyyul Lisan, he speaks Arabic and he is a good messenger to memorize what he's going to say. I want to send a book to, or a message, or a risala to this man. So this Arab brought me, the Tanukhi, to Hiraql. Clear now, right? So the middleman basically brings the Tanukhi. Here is a guy you can trust. So he brings me to Hiraql. And Hiraql gave me a message, a parchment, you know, the risala. And he said, take this to that man, and whatever you forget of his speech and conversation, just pick and memorize 3 things. The whole conversation you can forget, just memorize for me 3 things. Number one, see or check, does he mention the letters that he wrote to me? The previous letters, does he mention that? Does he mention the letters that he has written to me? Number 2, when he reads this letter of mine, see if he will mention anything to do with night and darkness. So there's some test question in the letter, right? If he reads the letter, just see if he's going to mention the night or the darkness. And number 3, see on his back, is there something that causes you to be alarmed, something different that should not be on the back of any man? See on his back. So from this we learn that there are 3 signs that are mentioned in the classical books of our Prophet ﷺ. So the Tanukhi said, I went to his book, with his risala until I arrived at Tabuk. Now, Tabuk is literally 1 day's journey from the Syrian border of our times. Literally, I mean, in our times it's like an hour's drive in the car. It's used of the northernmost place. So, you know, the risala Dihya goes up, then this man comes down. Okay, so he comes and he sees the Prophet ﷺ at Tabuk, and he was sitting amongst all of his companions and at the well of Tabuk. So that's where they were, they're at the well of Tabuk. So when I saw all of them there, I went up and I said, where is your leader? So they pointed and he said, Ha huwa dha, he is over there. And this demonstrates that the Prophet was not wearing garments and clothes that made him stand up from the rest of the crowd. So you cannot be, all of them are dressed similarly. So which one is the leader? So they pointed. So he went, he said, I went walking towards him until I sat down in front of him and I gave him the book. Nawaltuhu kitabi. I gave him the book. So he put it aside. He didn't read the book. He didn't read the letter. He put it aside. And he said, where are you from? I said, I am from the tribe of Tanukh. I am from Tanukh. So he said, why don't you embrace Islam, the Hanifiyya, the millah of your father Ibrahim? You're an Arab, your father is Ibrahim. Embrace Islam, and that is the way of your father Ibrahim. So the Tanukhi said, I am an ambassador of a nation right now, and my people have their religion. He's also a Christian. And I will not embrace another religion as an ambassador of mine. And I will go back and think about this matter. And that's, therefore, some people say he embraced Islam later on, and some people say he remained a Christian. And one version mentions he was in a church. Another version doesn't mention that. So there's a bit of an ikhtilaf. Did the Tanuhi embrace Islam or not? There's a bit of a controversy over that. But basically he said, I'm an ambassador, and I represent the Roman Empire right now, and it's not appropriate for me to convert as an ambassador. Some perverted logic he has, right? So the Prophet ﷺ laughed at this. فَضَحِكَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. And he recited Surah Al-Qasas verse 56. You do not guide those whom you love, but rather Allah guides those whom He pleases. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, O you person of Tanuh. He hasn't opened the letter yet. O you person of Tanuh. I wrote a letter to the Kisra of Persia, and he ripped my letter apart, so Allah will rip his kingdom apart. And I wrote my letter to the Najashi, and he ripped it apart, so Allah will rip his kingdom apart. I'll explain this in a while. I know what you're all thinking. And I wrote my letter to your companion, meaning Heraclius. So he kept it safe. And so people will continue to see his strength, Heraclius' strength, as long as there is some good to life. Meaning his kingdom will remain for a long time. Now pause here. We all know the story of Kisra, and he tore it up. As for the story of Najashi, we need to realize that this is not the Najashi that is the first Najashi. The first Najashi died, and our Prophet prayed salah over him. Then the Prophet sent another letter to his son, and his son tore that letter up. And the magnificent kingdom of the Abyssinian Habasha dissolved after that point in time. And we still have to this day their remnants and their civilization and their heritage, but the kingdom dissolved. There was a civil war after the death of our Najashi. And the son basically started the civil war with another faction. And it's as the Prophet ﷺ said, that he tore my letter up, so Allah will tear his kingdom up. And your companion, Heraclius, preserve my letter, so Allah will preserve his kingdom as long as there is good in the people. So the Tanuhi said, this is the first of the three. You understand? He mentions letter. The first of the three. And he said, I took out an arrow from my swiver. What do you call the thing again? Quiver. I call it swiver. See, shows you have never had some real hunting experience. You should take me one day hunting. So from my quiver, and I carved out on the parchment, meaning so I don't forget. So they don't have pen and ink. So he's actually taking the arrowhead and he's carving into leather. Whatever he wants to carve, like the first point is done. Okay, so he did this. Then the Prophet ﷺ, so I said to the Prophet ﷺ, Tanuhi is saying, I said to him, who is your secretary that will read to you? Who reads? Meaning read the letter. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Muawiyah. And Muawiyah is one of the Kuttab al-Wahi. He's one of the people who would read and write the revelation and be an ambassador or a scribe. So Muawiyah. So Muawiyah was called. Muawiyah then reads the letter, and inside the letter there was a question Heraclius is sending to the Prophet ﷺ. Clear? Right? So in that letter, Heraclius is saying, you pretend to invite me to a heaven that is as broad as the heaven and the earth. جَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضِ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. You are saying there is a Jannah that is as big as the heavens and earth, that is prepared for the muttaqeen. So, if that is the case, that heaven is as big as the heaven and earth, where then is hell? This is the question, the trick question. Don't look at me, it's Heraclius, right? This is the trick question. If heaven is so big that it takes up Jannatan عَوْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضِ, right? Where is hell? So our Prophet ﷺ said, Subhanallah, وَأَيْنَ اللَّيْلُ إِذَا أَقْبَلَ النَّهَارِ. Subhanallah, where does the night go when the day comes? So what just happens here? Question 2. Right? So the Tanuhi says this is the second. And later on he takes out his arrow and he scribes on his leather parchment what he needs to scribe down, that the second thing is done. Then when he finished reading the letter, the Prophet ﷺ said, you are an ambassador and you have a right over us as an ambassador. And if we had something to give you, we would have given you. But right now we are in travel and I don't have anything. So he's excusing himself that ambassadors deserve gifts. It is the nature of all customs of the world, that when the ambassador comes, you give the ambassador a gift, right? This is the nature of all political realities. And the Prophet ﷺ is conforming to those political customs. There's nothing wrong with conforming to political custom. But he is saying, we are now in a safar and we don't have anything to give you. I'm sorry, I can't give you a gift because I'm not at home now. And this shows us the poverty of the Sahaba and of the people, that they don't have even these gifts. So somebody stood up and said, Ya Rasulullah, I will give him a gift. And he went to his tent and he came back and he gave him a yellow garment, hulla safra, and he gifted it to me. So the narrator says, who was the man who gave you the gift? So the Tanuhi says, it was Uthman ibn Affan. It was Uthman ibn Affan. That when the Prophet excused himself, I don't have anything, Uthman felt bad. He said, I will give him on your behalf. So Uthman gave one of his own garments to the Tanuhi. So the Prophet then said, who amongst you will host this man for the night? So one of the Ansar stood up and he said, I will host him. So I stayed with the man for the night. Then when it was time for me to go back, because he's a messenger, he's going to go back the next day. So I stood up to leave. And I went out from the majlis, and the Prophet ﷺ said, Ta'al ya akha Tanukh. Come here, O man from Tanukh. Come here, O person of Tanukh. So I came rushing towards him, until when I was standing in front of him, he pulled back his garment. And he said, come and look at what your Lord or your Master has told you to look at. And so the Tanukhi said, I went behind him, and I saw a khatam, a seal, in between the two shoulder blades, like a circular ball or seal over there. And we learn from other traditions that it was a type of hair of an unusual color. We learn from yet other traditions it was as small as a pigeon's egg, which is literally like this, a pigeon's egg. It's a small thing, and it was perfectly in between the shoulder blades, and it was a physical growth of hair in a small manner, in a color that is not typical. The color, some say green, some say other colors. It's a hair that is an unusual color, a color that is beautiful to look at, and it is in between the katifay or the shoulder blades of the Prophet ﷺ. So he said, I went back having all three of the questions answered. And this is a beautiful narration, you must admit. It's one of my favorite stories of the man from Tanukh and what happens to the man of Tanukh. And this also occurs in the battle of Tabuk. And inshaAllah ta'ala, with that we conclude